Hi, I'm Arielle Jacobs. I was the original Delilah in Between the Lines, and this is Young Entertainment Magazine.
What does your path look like leading up to your role as Delilah, and what exactly led you to playing this part?
My path leading up to the role of Delilah started when I was the original Gabriella in High School Musical on stage, and I also made my Broadway debut as Nina in The Heights on Broadway. I also started as Nessa Rose in Wicked on Broadway, and then as Princess Jasmine in Aladdin in both Australia and on Broadway. And one day, my boyfriend asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to be the original princess of a new character and do some animation. So he had me go in a recording studio and sing some Disney songs, and that led to something really, really special.
What was it like working with Jodi Picoult? How much influence did she have on you being in the show and the show itself?
Working with Jodi Picoult was such a dream come true. She was at every rehearsal, she was at all of the shows almost. She and her daughter wrote Between the Lines, and she actually was the one who picked me to play Delilah originally. She found one of those YouTube videos of me singing a Disney song in a recording studio that I did for fun, and she stumbled across it and said, "That's our Delilah." And she invited me to come play the role in one of the early workshops, so I was super lucky to get to do it when it finally came to New York too.
How was the process of morphing yourself into playing the character of a 17-year-old girl? Were there any challenges?
When I played Delilah and I was playing a 17-year-old, it kind of felt like I was still playing a version of me. I feel like I remember what it was like to be 17, sometimes it still feels like I'm 17, and it felt really fun to be able to step back into the shoes of what it was like when I was in high school, and especially because I did move to a brand new school at the start of my freshman year. My family moved across the country, I was the new person in a new school, so I really did feel like I related to that part of Delilah's journey.
What was your favorite part about not only learning, but playing the role of Delilah, a character trying to find her place in the world?
I think my favorite part about playing Delilah was keeping such a positive energy, such a joyful energy, regardless of circumstances. And I really related to Delilah's journey because I was bullied really badly when I was younger. So I found my escape in performing and singing and doing things that lit me up and made me happy. And I think Delilah also found an escape in her love of books. And so getting to relate my history and what lit me up to what Delilah's history, what Delilah's journey was, felt very similar to me.
Besides the role you play, are there any other characters in the show Between the Lines that you personally connect with?
This is a really funny question. The other character in Between the Lines that I connect with, I don't know, maybe Rapscolio because he's a painter and I like to paint. And I like to tell stories, and I like to write children's books, and finding other expressions of creativity is a really big part of my life.
Is there anything in particular that you look for when choosing a new role?
One of the things I look for when choosing a new role is finding a character that is at a crossroads of some sort, and a character that's trying to figure out what to do next, and figuring out how to move towards a place of feeling bigger, feeling more healed, whether it's internally or with more of a sense of belonging with their community.
What is your favorite song in the musical and why?
My favorite song in Between the Lines is probably A Whole New Story. At the end of Act 1, it just felt like that was the moment that Delilah is really struggling with what to do, and so everything comes crashing down and she has to decide whether she's going to shut away her connection with Prince Oliver or whether she's going to take control and choose the direction of her life that makes her most happy. And I think for me it just felt so powerful to be in the show, standing on the rooftop, and then, I mean, if you've seen Between the Lines, or if you haven't, maybe you can imagine what it was like to be reading the book and then suddenly the whole world disappears and you fall into this fantasy world, and it was absolutely magical.
What was the process like recording the album for the show?
Recording the album of Between the Lines was maybe one of the most fun things I've ever done. I spent about 3 days in the recording studio they had the cast orchestra, they had the company orchestra record first. So they had a full 12-hour day recording the entire score, and then 3 days after that, the cast came in and did all the vocals. And it was so fun because they had all of the cast separated into little rooms, and it was like reliving the entire show, but just sound-wise. And it just felt so fun to be able to like do it different ways and to hear things in the orchestra that I'd never heard before, because sometimes when you're on stage performing, you can't hear all the little intricacies. So I loved performing it in the recording booth and then also getting to hear it back on the cast album, which is now trending on Billboard. We're in the top 10! We're debuted at number 7 on Billboard, yay!
What was the most rewarding experience in this show?
I think the most rewarding experience of originating Delilah in Between the Lines was always meeting people who had seen the show and telling me how important the show was to them, and telling me how much they felt like they were seeing themselves on stage in any of these multiple characters that were so different from each other, but everyone felt like they could see themselves portrayed in one of these characters. And a lot of people told me how much it empowered them to make changes in their own life, whether it was starting a new job or transitioning from one relationship to something new and doing something that they were scared of. And that was really inspiring to me.
Do you have any funny or interesting stories about the process of learning your role or working on the show?
There was one day I'll never forget where we were in the middle of Act 2 and there was a leak in the theater. So suddenly they stopped the show and we went off stage and we were waiting, and usually if there's some technical issue they'll stop for 5, 10, 20 minutes and then you come back. But on this particular day there was a leak from one of the upper floors down through the ceiling directly onto the soundboard. So there was people standing there with umbrellas trying to cover the soundboard, make sure that nothing was going to get damaged, but they couldn't stop the leak. So they had to cancel the whole rest of the show, and Ren Rivera and I were in the middle of singing Ally McAndrews. And so we had to come on stage and kind of do a little shuffle exit because they were sending everybody home. And it was a wild day, a wild experience. Thank God they did invite all those people back to experience the show on another day. But it was one of those experiences that I've never had before, and it was very funny in hindsight.
What message do you hope the audience takes away from the musical?
I hope that people who hear Between the Lines and see Between the Lines take away a sense of ownership for their own lives, and a sense of hope, and a sense that they can really create the world that they want to create no matter what. Because we really can write our own stories and we can be the heroes of our own world.
There are lots of people who look up to you in the industry. Is there any advice you would give to someone who is interested in performing in the musical?
My biggest piece of advice for somebody who's going into the arts or auditioning for shows is just not to limit yourself and not to judge yourself, because a lot of times we might think we're not right for a character, or we might think that we're too weird and they're not going to like us. But if you are really authentically yourself, you are very interesting to the people around you and the people casting this show and the people directing it. You might not feel like you're interesting enough because you are around yourself all the time, so you feel like you're just normal, but you are so unique, and to never forget that and to never feel like you're not enough.
And lastly, I have to know what it was like working with Benjamin Rockwell on that Disney Princess tour. I got to see it, and it was just so magical.
Oh my gosh, I love that you came to see Disney Princess the concert. It was such a fun time. I was singing all of these Disney Princess songs with Susan Egan, the original Belle on Broadway, and Meg and Hercules the movie, and Cindy Winters, who played Nala in The Lion King, and Annalise Vanderpool, who was the final Belle on Broadway and also starred on the Disney Channel and That's So Raven, and the four of us, and Benjamin Rauhola, our fairy godfairy, on piano, and Adam Levy, who was our Prince Charming. We toured around the entire country in a tour bus. It was like we were living the ultimate rock star life while singing Disney princess songs, and It was such a fun time. It's my favorite kind of music to sing, you know, that wonderful Alan Menken kind of style music that Between the Lines is as well. And I loved performing those songs and sharing it with so many Disney fans. And I love that you got to come see it. Thank you so much for having me here to chat a little bit about Between the Lines. It's my favorite show I've ever done. So please go check out the album wherever you listen to music, and don't forget to subscribe to Young Entertainment Magazine.